Good morning and a very warm welcome to the Portimao circuit on the Algarve as we prepare for the first round of the FIA GT3 European Championship and their first qualifying session of the 2011 season. So really it's the start of a brand new championship, lots of new cars to discuss and think about, and the cars just making their way out onto the circuit. My name's Ben Edwards, I'm here with John Watson. Track temperature, as you can see, 15.3 Celsius, but John, clearly we had some heavy overnight rain and there are still a few damp patches on circuit, and I noticed walking back over a moment ago there are still a few clouds around over the back side of the track.
Yes, slight weather change from what we had yesterday. A lovely day here at Portimao. 75% humidity, of course, indicates that there is a lot of moisture in the air, but I think with an onshore wind, the sea was a bit rougher this morning than it was yesterday. Hopefully that will clear away, but as you point out, there was rain. The track has still got damp patches, and for these GT3 competitors out in track now for the second day, they just need to be careful on these initial out laps, the exploratory laps that they will conduct. They mostly probably will go back into the garage, have a little check over the car, and then the two drivers will then set about their tasks of trying to qualify for their first event this afternoon.
Yeah, and what a cross-section of cars that we've got to enjoy. Now, the Porsche, in fact, the Porsche number 2 car there, the Pro Speed team, you're looking at the car of Petri Lapalainen, but Pro Speed competition won the Teams Championship in FIA GT3 last year. There are only 2 Porsches, though, run by the Pro Speed outfit in this year's championship. At the moment, there might be others joining in on perhaps an invitational basis. But what is interesting, John, is the real cross-section of machinery, and, of course, particularly just looked at it, the Mercedes SLS AMG GT3 car. A lot of those, 7 of them in fact, entered into the race this weekend, and fabulous to see it part of the GT3 series. Yes,
indeed, and great to have Mercedes-Benz as a manufacturer. Of course, these are not factory cars, they're privately entered cars, but to see this car, I mean, an expensive road car that has now been adapted to GT3, 7 of them here. Also, the introduction for the first time for us, certainly, is the new Ferrari 458 Italia. And that, again, a very, very exciting car, a step up from the previous Ferrari 430 Scuderias, which we know was a competitive car, and the 458 has taken that another level.
Well, we have the onboard camera on one of the Mercedes, as you can see here. This is onboard the Heiko car of Bryce Bosey, who's driving it at the moment. And you were saying to me, John, yesterday when we were wandering around the paddock, that the driver sits further back, and it's a longer sort of front end to the Merc SLS than virtually any other car out there.
Well, I mean, I looked at the car in the paddock. I mean, I've obviously seen the cars on the street and around London, but when you see the car in the paddock and you look at the driver's position, it reminds me, in fact, of the heritage of the Mercedes-Benz company within motor racing. And one of their great old-time Formula 1 cars, or Grand Prix cars as they were known in those days, was the car model number W125, which was a driver sitting directly behind a straight 8 2-stage supercharged engine. This is a V8 supercharged engine, much more compact, but the driver's still a long way back.
There is a car in trouble already. That is the Aston Martin of Bernhard Delhez, going very slowly. Just the 2 Aston Martins entered in the GT3 European Championship. It is the DBR S9, and both those cars are run by the fairly new team, LMP, and we've got a car off already.
Yeah, and that looks like more than enough. That's a shunt. I think it's one of the Z4s, just trying to get a quick glimpse at that car and just judge which part of the racetrack it is. And that may actually see a momentarily... certainly be a yellow flag at that point of the circuit. It may even actually go as far as a red flag, because depending on the track, we couldn't quite identify that segment of the racetrack that the car was off track on. So wait and see whether that's going to be a red flag or not.
So they've got the number 12 Mercedes, Jan Stovicek and Jakob Noll, who are sharing this car. This is one of the Gravity Charouz run Mercedes SLS even AMG cars. We're just getting our head around all the different configurations and colour schemes, etc.
I'm just looking, I think that might be turn 4 that we saw that Z4 off, because there was a track car just at the edge, the outside edge of turn 4, so possibly trying to second guess without getting a clear sight of the car. I think that was done at turn 4, which is a big break. That's quite a tight corner. In fact, there's the Aston Martin. That might be turn 4, but we did have another car off track elsewhere, a more serious incident. There is certainly a car. That is the Aston Martin. That's at turn 4.
That just seems to have pulled off.
That's pulled off, yeah. The BM, the Z4, we can't still identify which part of the circuit. Red flag, not surprised. Two cars off track. We're only into this session about a few minutes, and we're already. There is the Z4.
It's, Harry Colin is the driver of that car. He's actually sharing it with one of the GT1 drivers. Nick Katzberg is the other driver this weekend.
How it got off there is difficult to tell because there's a lot of runoff.
I suppose there are some damp patches though. So the session has been red flagged. The Aston Martin is going to set off on its way and hopefully get back to the pits, and hopefully they can then cure whatever the problem is with that car, and then the session will be restarted. Let's just quickly run you through the format of the weekend. They have qualifying now, which is two 20-minute sessions, and it's driver 1 who will qualify the car first off, and that will be for the Grid 1 race. Both races this weekend are championship races, scoring points in the normal FIA point scoring system nowadays, 25 points for the win, etc. So 20-minute session for driver 1, then there's a 10-minute pause, driver 2 takes over, and then driver 2 will go out and qualify in another 20-minute session, which will be for the second race of the weekend. As I say, they both score points, but John, the other thing about GT3 is they have a minimum time that they have to spend in the pit. So unlike GT1, it's not a race for the teams on the pit stops.
Well, that's the current situation, and that may also be revised later in the GT3 program. But yes, they've got a 75-second period in which they can't do it any quicker than 75 seconds. They want to take 5 minutes, and I no doubt some will.
The conditions, we're early in the morning, relatively early. It's still just 9:15 local time, so Portugal on the same time zone as the UK. It's an early start for the GT3 contingent, and they've got a race to remember later on today, their first race of the championship, and then of course another race come Sunday. Looking down at there's Gaël de Soudier's Aston Martin. We saw the other Aston, his teammate car, have a little bit of a problem earlier. Hopefully this red flag has been just the time they need to try and sort out whatever the problem was. It looked like some sort of electronic glitch or something like that, but hopefully that will be okay. And the car's now getting ready to come back out onto the circuit. The timing screens are telling us that it will resume in just over 30 seconds this session, so some of the guys feeling it's an opportunity to get down to the end of the pit lane and get ready to go. Just another quick reminder on the format of the GT3 European Championship, and that is the driver rankings. Now each driver is ranked either gold, silver or bronze, depending on their previous experience, their success level, and there, by the way, is the car that's been fastest so far, Paulo Pinheiro, the track boss here at Portimao, who's getting to play this weekend. Actually, he gets to play quite a lot, I think. He's got a little collection of his own cars that he goes round in, but he's getting to race this weekend. He's raced a GT4 car in the past, I gather, but now he's going to be racing this GT3 car. But he would be a bronze classified driver, wouldn't he, John?
He could be bronze, certainly wouldn't be higher than that, and you don't often have racetrack owners who are also race drivers, and the only ones I can think of in my experience were the late great Tom Wheatcroft, who didn't race, but he certainly would jump into the collection of historic race cars he held at the Donington Motor Museum and drive them at Donington Park, but also John Webb, who used to be the Meister of Brands Hatch. And John Webb did race before he then became MD of Brands Hatch for very many years through the 60s, 70s and into the early 80s.
And now we have Jonathan Palmer, of course, who raced very successfully. He doesn't seem to do much racing now, concentrating more on the career of his son.
I mean, but the difference, I think, was Jonathan raced and then he followed up the career that he should have done. It should have been, he's a qualified MD, a doctor. Mind you, I wouldn't want anybody to go and see him as a doctor, because, anyway, he's now running motorsport. What's it called? Motorsport Vision. And of course, that includes 4 circuits. Brands Hatch probably is the jewel in the crown of those 4 racetracks in Great Britain.
Yeah, very successful businessman, that's for sure. So there we are, the car's back out on circuit with just over 13 minutes to go in the first of the 2 qualifying sessions.
Strange that car's they've got 2 black gull-wing doors as opposed to having a uniform silver, which would be the colour that Mercedes-Benz raced under. But of course, the history of German motor racing, and that's the cloud dust as they come up through turn 14. Now, somebody must have dropped oil at that point. We didn't see that, but we saw the sand or the cement being laid down. Of course, Mercedes-Benz raced under what was called silver, but in fact it was bare aluminium. The national racing colours of Germany, in fact, is white. But again, going back to the 30s, because the weight of the car and the formula was a maximum weight of 750 kilograms, so the car weighed about a kilogram or two above that, so they just stripped all the paint off and ran in bare aluminium, and that's how they, first of all, that's how they became known as the Silver Arrows. I bet you didn't know that.
I did actually, but it's a lovely story. It was very well explained, John. Very well explained. Interestingly, though, our screens are saying the team manager of this car has been called to the race director immediately. I don't know whether that was because they were down at the end of the pits or what that was about, but anyway, hopefully there's no major problem. The car continuing around this wonderful Portimao circuit. It really has got a lot of elevation change that you can actually see even on camera. I mean, a lot of tracks you go to, the ups and downs don't show too well on camera, but here you've got a lot of blind brows. You can see here he's climbing up the hill through the left-hander, and then it sort of dips back down again all the time, John. It's actually very difficult to position the car correctly here.
Well, in certain parts of the track, and here on the exit of turn 9, the car, literally you just point skyward and you've got to almost anticipate, guess where am I going to place the car, but then you go down the roller coaster into the compression of turn 10, then up the hill again. Where do I place the car? Most drivers stay on the right hand side of the track for 10 and then turn 11. I mean, it is a demanding racetrack of any driver, particularly gentleman drivers would find this circuit one of the toughest that they'll ever contend with through the season.
Now, we gather that, yeah, that's what happened. The number 43 car has been called, the team manager's been called to the race director because they actually went down to the end of the pits before they were meant to. There is a rule that sort of says when you're allowed to go down to the end of the pits to go out for the session. He went too early, and that's why they're going to get a little bit of a telling off, but nothing too major. Paulo Pinheiro then, the track boss here, about to complete another lap, just going across the line now. And let's just see what that is. That was a 150.9, so that is again the new fastest lap. It's the first proper lap of anybody, and we're seeing some faster times beginning to come through now. 1 minute 50, so we're about, what are we on,
4 seconds approximately, and for a first flying lap in reality, because all that had taken place in the moments beforehand were really no consequence. So good first flying lap for Paulo Pinheiro in the Mercedes SLS.
Here's one of the Michelin-tired BMW Z4s. That's Jeroen de Boer, who's in that car. Let's just watch him round the lap a little bit. Got the time ticking away in the bottom part of the screen. And the Z4, as we've already mentioned, has proved its worth in this series. You've also got the Porsche there, though, just diving down the inside. That's on the entry to turn 6 before they start climbing back up the hill once again.
Very
Lapalainen, yes. Who has nipped through in the Pro Speed Porsche 911.
You know, you can't keep a good car down, can you?
You are a Porsche fan at the end of the day.
I'm a Porsche fan, and just somehow or other, every year they manage just to find enough to keep this model competitive with even more advanced. I mean, certainly the Ferrari and the Mercedes, much more advanced in technical terms than the layout, the rear engine hanging over behind the rear axle, yet this car still capable of winning races.
It's actually interesting looking at the different layouts of cars in this series. It's pretty even between mid-engine and front-engine. We've got 13 front-engine cars, because we've got all the Mercedes now, of course, joining in the fun and games. 13 mid-engine cars and just the 2 rear-engine cars, just the 2 911s in the series at the moment.
Yeah, I mean, again, one of the things that was pointed out this morning was that the 458s don't have traction control, whereas the like of the 911, really, it doesn't need traction control because the weight of the engine over the rear wheels gives that car outstanding traction off the corner. Where the car is less competitive is on the entry into the corner, because the engine, sort of the pendulum effect of the engine almost wanting to come over the top of the car makes the car probably less stable on the entry into a high-speed corner. But it swings and roundabouts, and round this racetrack I think traction is important. But of course, high-speed handling, like coming through the turn 16, this long right-hand corner onto the main straight, a real crunch time corner.
So fastest now has gone the number 50 Ferrari 458. Is there a problem with the Ford GT? That's going very slowly. Oh, it's been off the track and is rejoining. That was out of turn 16 actually, coming back onto the circuit, but I think okay, and no damage done to the car. So it's it's the Ferrari of Castellacci that's gone fastest at the moment on a 1:46.8. So they're actually getting down to the times we saw in dry practice yesterday. Not quite the fastest time, but that's impressive from Castellacci. That's the other car of the same team, and that is Daniel Brown, I think, in the car at the moment.
Well, the Ferrari number 50 Castellacci has gone fastest on the lap he's on currently in that first sector, so there's more time to come from that particular car.
Yeah, so and here we are. We've got the onboard camera, great, with Daniel Brown in the Ferrari 458. Chatted to him briefly this morning, youngster from Billericay in Essex, who started his career in karting, like so many did, of course, and then raced in T-cars. Actually, raced against Max Chilton in T-cars and up against...
I wouldn't boast about that, actually. I wouldn't really think that's nothing to be very proud of at all.
A couple of names, anyway. Then he went and raced Formula Palmer Audi after that. And then his single-seater career sort of stopped and he went into...
the Ford, getting a big
cars.
loop coming through turn 16, I think.
Yeah, that was...
Oh, indeed, that was a scary place to lose your Ford GT. And there's the Ferrari, currently quickest of all the cars, fastest in first and second sectors on this lap. This should see an improvement on the 146.8 by 0.4 of a second.
Castellacci stays fastest then in the number 15 Ferrari, 146.4, and that's 0.6 faster than Nicholas Meyer-Melner, who's now come up to second place in the Lamborghini, although that's just been displaced
dumped down to third, so
by a Mercedes. So yeah, we've got Ferrari on top, Mercedes second, Lamborghini third at the moment, still very early stages, and a Porsche fourth. Nice spread between the manufacturers.
Absolutely, and rear engine, mid-engine leading. As we look at the Lamborghini Gallardo, and I don't know why I assumed there'd be a lot more Lamborghinis in GT3 than we are seeing here, just this one car.
Yeah, I'm surprised it's just the one car in the series at the moment. Big heavy cloud overhead there, isn't there? But this will be a competitive car because both these guys are quick, both silver drivers, Nicholas Meyer-Melner and Albert van Taxis, who is the reigning
German aristocracy.
Indeed, Prince Albert, and he won the ADAC GT Championship last year. Very, very competitive driver lineup, actually, these two in the Lamborghini. So, and with the Reiter engineering team looking after them, I think we're going to have to keep an eye on these guys, because it might only be the one Lamborghini, but it could be the one Lamborghini that's up ahead or up with the race leaders.
The only trouble is last night in the paddock, walking through the various team garages, this car was up on its axle stand, the gearbox was out, they were working around the rear of the car. Hopefully, whatever the issue was, that's been resolved clearly by the pace of the car. They've got very good pace. Still in fourth place last lap, no quicker than their previous best.
So yeah, still a decent position though, fourth place for them at the moment. Got another fastest sector time, have we, for the Ferrari? Yeah,
just in this current lap for the Ferrari. Ferrari still quickest, 146.4. Waiting for it to come across the start-finish line. It is yet to 46.530, in fact, was this last lap, so it was 10th of a second down.
Leonid Machitsky, this is, Russian driver in his Mercedes SLS. Why do I keep saying LSL?
Well, SL, think of SL.
SL, and then add an S. That's easy then.
Don't put an R on it, because it's not an SLR, it's an SLS.
The Mercedes up over the hill, down the other side. This is actually another car. This is the number 44 car of Bryce Bosey. We're going on board. Let's see, you can still see there's still a few damp patches offline.
Yeah, but just a bit, he's sitting probably about 9 or 10 feet behind the nose of this car. It's such a long way back, and it's all right when you're running on your own, but of course when you get into traffic, particularly at the start of an event, into the opening corners, I just wonder, are the drivers in these SLSs going to make little errors? Are they bump into cars ahead of them, or not just realise just how big their car is?
Coming onto the straight, let's have a listen to the engine note in the Merc.
Well, a big lift as he goes through turn 16.
Across the line he goes. It's a lovely noise, and fifth fastest at the moment, I think, for that car. And actually, I think it's Dominic Bowman in the car at the moment rather than his teammate Bosey. So according to our timing screens, it's Bowman in the car currently. They've got just 3.5 minutes of this session. Remember, driver one is qualifying the car for the first of the two championship races this weekend. So it is critical now to really try and put in the quick lap. At the moment, it's a Ferrari heading for pole position. We've got a new second place car. It's the number 6 BMW of Edward Sundstrom, who suddenly popped up to second place. There is the number 20 Ferrari of Luca Piri and Paul Rees, and that car currently...
No time. Well, they were repairing the car last night, so yeah, I suspect it's been in and out of the garage. We haven't even had a flying lap yet recorded from that car. It is on that flying lap as we speak, but just under 3 minutes in the session remaining. They've really got little more than one lap for sure, and maybe if they get across the start-finish line, they should get 2 flying laps in before they then take the checkered flag. But a lot of pressure on this car. Paul Rees, I know, as you mentioned, Ben, very excited about the prospect of getting into GT3. He sees it as a new opportunity to kick-start his racing career, which has really at times stuttered as Paul has tried to make a career.
Yeah, let's hope that this gives him a real chance to show his talents. Number 13, that's Paolo Roberto Bonifacio again, off. That's same place as he had that spin earlier on in the session, out of turn 16.
But consistency. It's always good to be consistent. Drivers
Consistently facing the wrong way.
Team managers don't like erratic drivers. Let's watch and see. Coming through, this is Professor where he actually was...
That was weird. I couldn't make that out for a second.
I don't know what was going on either. I mean, anyway, exit of turn 16, something goes wrong. And, I mean, whether it's a technical problem, whether it's just the driver too quick for the corner and for the grip the car level has got, we have to find out maybe later.
So we've still got the Ferrari fastest at the moment as the time ticks away into the closing stages of the first of
it's
the
not quickest any longer.
Just changed that moment.
As the BMW, the Z4 and Dunlop has gone quickest. Abdulaziz Al Faisal.
I think it's actually his teammate Sandstrom in the car. It's easier to say as well. Edward Sandstrom is currently in the car. According to the highlight. Yes,
yeah, but the driver one should be. So what's the entry list says? Driver one is Abdulaziz Al.
Well, we'll check that later, but certainly on the timing screen they've highlighted the name of his teammate.
Ferrari have now regained that position on a 1:45.7. That is the fastest lap by a GT3 car all weekend.
That's fast.
And the domination of the 4.58 once again is pretty evident.
Yeah, that's impressive from Castellacci. A 1:45.7, very, very fast indeed. Looking at the United Autosports Audi of Mark Patterson at the moment, the number 22 car. Good mate of yours engineering at that team, Trevor Foster.
Trevor Foster, a man of great experience, a legend within motorsports, worked at many Formula One teams in the past, Lotus, Jordan, Tyrrell, I think maybe even Shadow, and of course more recently known as being the man at Zytec, looking after the A1GP engines amongst other things, and of course the Zytec LMP program, ALS, whatever, and he's now working independently and working with United Autosports Audi 88s with Zach Brown, the boss of that very impressive operation.
But there's the car that is fastest in this session. It is Castellacci, Francesco Castellacci, the silver graded driver. He shares with another silver driver, Federico Leo. Remember, if you're a gold driver, which is the top rank in GT3, then you can only share with a bronze graded driver, but two silver drivers can share the car together, and quite often that's the most effective pairing to have, two silvers, because they're sort of maybe semi-pros or extremely talented amateurs. That gets you into the silver category, if you like, and that can be a great combination. Checkered flag out, though, on the session. Ferrari looks good for pole, unless anybody's on a real flyer, but I'm not seeing any purple on our timing sectors coming up at the moment.
In fact, Ferrari comes in before he takes the checkered flag, takes it in the pit lane entry. He's confident he's got a substantial advantage over the rest of the field. So the added advantage is actually 0.673 of a second as we go on board with the sister car 51.
Yeah, that's Daniel Brown in the car at the moment, the English driver who has raced in British GT in the past, but he's concentrating on this GT3 European campaign.
You can almost see in the Ferrari still that archetypical Italian driving position. They still have got them, you know, it's all a bit cramped. He's quite a relatively tall driver. So he goes through turn 10 up the hill into 11 and 12. Still on a flying lap, still looking to make improvement. Currently in 6th place. So sister cars fastest and 6th.
Yeah, and let's see whether he finishes the lap off. He's around the same pace as he already is, about 6th, but you never know, he might be able to gain 1 or 2 places. Just ahead of him, number 33 car, the Audi of Enzo Ede.
Well, he needs a 10th or so of a second, and that would take him up to 5th place, so it just might be one clear run. Listen, almost can hold the throttle flat all the way through turn 16.
So let's watch him across the line as the Ferrari comes through. He's 6th at the moment. Does he stay 6th? Yes, he does. No change there. That was a 1:47.3 as opposed to his previous best 1:47.1, so he stays in 6th place, and it's Castellacci who has taken pole position. So there we are, good effort by Ferrari, John. What a good start for the 458.
Yeah, I mean, it is a supercar, there's no question about it. It's a step forward in every area over the former 430 Scuderia, and I mean, it's very, very early development days for this car. They don't have traction control. They've still got other issues which they're working their way through. So I think the potential of the 458 Italia is frankly awesome. Yeah,
very, very impressive. There's the number 7 BMW of Csaba Walter. He and Claudia Hurtgen, remember, won at Torama last year. That's the Z4 on Dunlops, but that has qualified down in 11th at the moment. Claudia will take the car over for the second session of qualifying. So just to remind you now, we've got a 10-minute pause. The Q2, in fact, less than 10 minutes because we lost some time earlier. But before we do that, let's go down to Francesco Castellacci, who has taken pole for the first race.
Congratulations, Francesco. How are the conditions out there for you this morning?
It was really hard at the beginning because of the rain of last night. It was really slippery. In fact, we saw the red flag at the beginning. There was not much time at the end to do the lap. I tried to build the lap by lap, and yeah, it was a good first pole of the year, so it's good. I'm really happy about it. Thanks to the team.
Thank you.
So a young lad, silver driver, Francesco Castellacci. What a wonderful Italian name in a wonderful Italian car. Could go a long way, this guy.
Well, I mean, certainly. Well, Ferrari has never been a big fan of Italian drivers since the middle 50s, when they had a number of them, and tragically they all died racing Ferraris. So they've steered away from that particular route. But of course, it is a great Italian name in a great Italian make. The Ferrari 458 Italia. It is just such a gorgeous car. Now, further down the road, we're going to see another drop-dead gorgeous car coming into GT racing. Not in GT3 this year, but in the Blancpain series. And that's the new McLaren MP4 12C, get it right.
Yeah.
And that's going to be another step forward in terms of technology.
So Ferrari, BMW, Mercedes, Lamborghini and Audi, top 5, all different cars. That's a great start to the campaign. But remember, it'll be all the second drivers, driver 2, as they're on that list now, who will be taking over the cars to see where they qualify. Well done to Daniel Brown getting his Ferrari up there in 6th. Glyn Geddy will take that car over now. And the first of the Pro Speed Porsches in 10th place, Paul van Splunteren. He, of course, challenged for the title last year, but not quite so quick in qualifying for this first race. Further down the order, again, a real mix-up of cars. Both of the Astons there in the bottom half of the top 20. Paul Rees and Luca Piri, they ended up 14th, as you can see in their Ferrari. The Ford GTs as well of Fisher Racing down there in 18th and 24th places, but keep an eye on those because Christopher Nygaard's going to be out in a moment in the number 14 Ford, and similarly at United Autosports, their quick drivers will be in the cars, and Paolo Pinheiro, sharing the car with Roger Green, was 20th in that.
In fact, there are 3 drivers competing in both GT3 and GT1. Maxime Martin will be out in a moment or two, and the Aston Martin DB RS9. Christoph Nygaard in the 4GT, as you mentioned, but Nicky Katzberg, hopefully, if he hasn't been out already, is in the BMW.
Duncan Cameron was right down at the bottom end of that list, but Matt Griffin, who'll be taking the car over for the next session, is a gold graded driver, so we'll see how he gets on. There are 9 gold drivers amongst our 56 drivers who are on the campaign here. There are 28 silver drivers, so half the field, in fact, are graded silver. And there are
the afternoon, so that was, I mean, the combination of drivers. I would expect Maxime Martin to put that car very much at the front of the grid for, this will be, of course, for the Sunday event.
So the Lamborghini is back out as this second section of qualifying gets underway. So forget what we've had, because that is now irrelevant to what we're watching now. This is a brand new qualifying session, all about putting the cars in the grid for the second race of the weekend. So absolutely back to zero. Nothing that has been set applies, and you will see some cars that were perhaps at the back in the first session, they've now got their quick drivers in, going much nearer the front, and it's likely we might even see the time that the Ferrari set in the first session eclipsed by some of these rapid guys in the second one.
Well, certainly in that car, the Ferrari that's the fastest lap, 1:45.7, whatever the time was. That's going to be a hard time to challenge, and the Ferrari goes off track. And that's coming out of turn 6. And which car is that? That is car 20. That's the car that was heavily damaged yesterday. Paul Rees was in it, as opposed to, he should have been in it for this session, but it looks now as if his teammate will be in that car. So this should be Luca Piri, but I wouldn't hold my breath on it. But I think it is, in fact, it's Perry is showing timing and scoring, so we have to take timing and scoring as knowing what they're doing.
Yeah, Pirri very experienced. He's been runner-up in the series in the past in GT3, so he is a very experienced campaigner at this level, whereas, as you say, Paul Rees is switching from single-seater, so he's still getting to learn the car.
Well, not just learn the car, he's got to take the single-seater chip in his brain out and put in a GT3 chip, because his instinct is to tell the team the car is floppy, it's too soft, stiffen it, stiffen it, stiffen it. But that's fine for a high downforce single-seater, which is where Paul is fundamentally raced. It is not the case with a much heavier and limited grip GT car, where you do need a little bit of roll in the car to assist the car, especially on entry into corners.
Yep, lovely shots of the Lamborghini heading down the straight into turn one. Potential overtaking opportunities there. We've seen it certainly last year, some fantastic racing around this Portimao circuit, and then there is no turn two because of the little chicane on the inside, so this is turn three, and then they start four in fact. Yes, the kink is three, isn't it?
You go 1, 3, and 2 is there, but we don't use turn 2.
Yeah.
So we go 1, 3, 4, and then up the hill through 5, then this braking, and again, it was last year, I'm not sure whether the track has changed, but the race line into turn 6, there were a few very nasty rippled bumps, in fact, and a lot of drivers realised that by staying in the middle of the track, while it wasn't ideal in terms of entry, it certainly made the braking performance of the car much more consistent. Whoa!
This is a pushing lap. I could hear the ABS just chipping in a little bit down into turn 6. Good. Actually, I should think that's a lovely corner where ABS really comes into its own. There's Hans Reiter, team boss, looking after that Lamborghini. Very good first sector from Albert Taxis.
Yes.
And let's see whether he can continue. He's a rapid driver, as we know, aristocracy as he is, but he's very capable in the car. Flamboyant character, definitely, and lovely to have him back on the scene actually in FIA GT3. He's a real member of the paddock, very popular, and let's see how he gets on with this lap. He's trying pretty hard, isn't he, John? Car moving.
Yeah, certainly. I mean, coming through turn 8 and 9, the car was moving around, and we didn't see an awful lot of that from any of the drivers in the first sector of GT3 qualification.
Can he keep it together through the final turn?
Just trying to hear whether he was breathing the throttle or whether he was able to keep it. 1:45.7 is the time he was going to try and match. So 1:47.2, 1.5. Well, it's 1.5, 1 3/4 seconds away.
Yeah, but it's just been eclipsed straight away there by the number 21 Ferrari, and that's Matt Griffin in the car. Now, he was very quick yesterday, there it is, and Matt Griffin's just done a 1:46.1, so he's not in the 45s that the other Ferrari was, but that's fast.
Yeah, and that's quicker than he did yesterday. He did a 1:46.7. He was quickest of the second session of practice here at Portimao, but now Matt Griffin is on it, and he's on it big time, and he's going to hunt down that pole position for the Sunday race.
Yeah, Matt's really charging here. Very experienced campaigner, of course, and very much a sports car specialist. He's done a lot of the testing with this car, he was telling me yesterday, John, so he's actually done probably more laps in a 458 than virtually anybody.
But you know what, Ben? I spoke to almost everybody who drives one of these cars, and they're all saying, yeah, I'm doing a lot of the testing for Ferrari. Who's doing the testing? They're all, there's a lack of traction control. Looks great, but that's not what you want when it comes to it's all right in practice, or particularly here in qualifying, where your tyres are fresh, but when you get to the end of a run, these cars will be suffering from lack of rear end grip. We saw Matt Griffin just using the power to tighten the exit out of turn 9, and then the drop down through that sort of roller coaster ride. Now we're further around the track, turn 13, the climb up to 14.
Yeah, there's the young man who was so fast earlier on in that first session, watching to see who, if anybody, can get close to his time. Not that it's relevant, he's still got pole for that first race, but it's interesting from his point of view to see if anyone can match the time he did for the second race. Matt Griffin just heading around now. Let's see what kind of a lap time this is. Also on a good lap is Dimitri Engelbert in the Aston Martin, by the way.
He's matched, he's actually gone matched.
Yeah, 45.7.
Yep, and of course there's a battle between the Ferrari teams. This is the MTech Motorsport team car that Matt Griffin is in, whereas it was the AF Corsa car that Castellacci, or whatever you call him, was in.
Yeah,
so there's two Ferrari teams competing with each other as well as competing with the rest of the field. Look at the bodywork, you almost think there's deflection. That, of course, is the car that Paul Rees was driving, that Luca Pirri has now suffered severe front-end damage, and I think a plastic surgeon could have done a better job on the nose of that car. Coming out of turn 4, had to cut the exit much more acutely to avoid the car just the Ford GT coming up through turn 5.
The Aston Martin of Dimitri Engelbert has gone third, former winner in the GT3 series, Engelbert, so showing that the Aston Martin DBR S9 still has good pace once the quicker of the two drivers in that team has got in. He's a silver graded driver. So we've got a Ferrari on top, change there for second actually. Gone second is Thomas Kotska in the Mercedes SLS AMG. That's just gone second fastest on a 146.2, and then we've got an Aston Martin up there. No, in fact 35. That's an BMW Z4. A real mix again up the top.
We're seeing it's Duncan Cameron driving, not Matt Griffin.
No, it's definitely Matt Griffin in the car.
Well, you know, it's timing and scoring and.
So yeah, it's the teams have got to switch the transponders apparently in the car. So if they don't switch them, then
well, I know there are gentlemen drivers, but the team manager should be professional. They should get that done and not have us not knowing which driver's in the car one way and the screen, whatever.
Yeah, no, it would be nice to have that accurate, but it's definitely Matt Griffin in the car at the moment, and he's gone fastest currently on that 145.7.
This, the front of this Ferrari does not look very secure.
It is pattering, isn't it? It's actually touching the ground.
Yeah, well, the bodywork was damaged heavily, and I'm not sure how many spare parts there are available, but it looks like the right front of the splitter, well, it's only not quite so bad there, but coming through turn 16, it didn't look as secure as I would like it to be.
2 seconds slower than the car of Matt Griffin on that lap was Pirri, but it doesn't look, as you say, that car doesn't look quite right. Now, this is Jeroen Jeroen Den Boer in the BMW Z4 GT3. 11.5 minutes still going in this second qualifying session. We've got Ferrari on top, but Albert von Turner Taxi's just gone second, by the way, in the Lamborghini on a 146.0, so 3/10 now the gap between Ferrari and Lamborghini. Kostka's still third in the Mercedes. Fourth place is the number 35 BMW of Jeroen van der Boer, we were just looking at. And there he is in that 35 machine. Jeroen Den Boer. Behind him, the number 15 car is Dino Lunardi. It's just going through shot there, actually, the Audi R8. You can see Dino Lunardi, another experienced campaigner in FIA GT3, and he's got that car fifth currently.
And a very arty shot from the pit lane, looking into somebody's reflective sunglasses as we go back on track down into 10. You can just see how difficult it is under braking into turn 6. Nobody really using the middle of the road where the bumps are significantly less. In fact, two Audis, one following the other, and running wide on the exit of turn 6. Something, again, you've got to be careful of not to run too wide, because if you get over the curve, then you will lose momentum out of turn 6.
The Audi R8 struggled a bit last year on the balance of performance. The cars are matched for performance in terms of restrictors, weight, all that kind of thing by an FIA commission, and the idea is that all the cars then perform at a similar level. They might perform in different ways, but they can achieve similar lap times. The Audi R8 did struggle last year. They've been given a little bit of compensation this year, and certainly the United Autosports guys we talked to yesterday are hopeful that the R8 is going to be a much more competitive proposition in this year's series.
Well, it would be nice to see Audi out there winning on pace and on merit, and they have to get a few concessions to get them there. Well, that's the nature of this particular form of GT racing. It isn't just about coming out with a high-tech car and blowing away the entire field, and everybody's got to spend zillions to catch up and develop and leave that to Formula One. That's what Formula One's all about. But GT racing is about fundamentally producing a lot of manufacturers at an equal level of performance and just entertaining us.
So this is the number 44 car of Bryce Bosey and Dominic Baumann. We think it's Bosey in the car at the moment. We've got our onboard camera, so once again, let's listen to this wonderful engine note. It's a great sound. John, to see how much throttle he's using through the next section. Is he going to be flat through here?
More chance of being struck by lightning, Ben.
Here we go. Last corner. Big lift. And then back on the power. get it turned in. That's what he needs to do.
Yeah, I remember this is a large car. It's a heavy car as well. It is a front engine sort of, you might call it almost mid-engine. The engine is quite far back in the chassis. And again, the bonnet of these, some of these cars, you can see a little bit of air bleed getting under the bonnet. The hood's not actually securely located.
Yeah, no, that's not ideal. You don't want to be getting any air under there. But up front at the moment, with 8 minutes to go, it's still the Ferrari on top. It looks as though the new 458. Oh, we've got a spinner. That is
SLS.
Number 3. Yes, the graph racing car of Mike Parisi. Now, that's interesting.
Well, that's 12.
Oh, that's number 12. Yeah,
Jakob Knoll.
So Jakob Knoll there, just trying to recover.
Yeah, but again, up to turn 14.
Yeah. Marshall's quickly on the scene, get him out of the way. So hopefully we won't have to have a red flag.
No, I think this one's okay as long as he has kept the engine running. He hasn't hit anything. It's just a small error under braking, I would imagine, into turn 14.
See, the lock is not huge. Not bad, actually. He managed to turn the steering lock.
Here we go. In he comes. No, just too much right foot. That's quite simply. Now, again, traction control is permitted. Whether it is activated on the SLS or whether it is inactive on the I don't know. But certainly the back end snapped away and the pendulum effect, as usual, took over.
We've just got a new pole sitter, John. Mike Parisi in the number 3 Mercedes in the Graf racing car has put in a time of 1:45.14. So that's a very, very impressive time.
And that puts the Ferrari back on its back foot, because that is the fastest lap of any GT3 car in this session or over the 2 days. And the challenge now clearly has been thrown down from these, in effect, certainly two new models from the respective manufacturers. Ferrari with the 458 Italia, Mercedes-Benz with the SLS, the V8 supercharged engine. Totally different cars in terms of concept and I mean, typical thorough German engineering. And then the more sort of operatic Ferrari, high revving V8. I mean, a joy to the ear.
Mike Parisi, a race winner last year in a Corvette, which Graf Racing were running the Corvettes last year, but that very experienced French team has now switched to these Mercedes SLS, and he's gone the quickest at the moment, faster than the Ferraris in both sessions, so 45.514. Just to remind you, last year's title in the end went to a pair of Corvette drivers, Daniel Kielwitz and Christian Hohenadel. They ended up taking the title, but Parisi here challenged them and beat them on several occasions in his Graf Racing Corvette. We saw some wonderful dices between them, and well, he's gone quickest so far in this session, so it's a pretty good debut for the Mercedes, isn't it? Let's see if he can hold on in the remaining 5.5 minutes of the session. But you've got a quick Aston driver there, Maxime Martin, in the number 9 car. Let's see what he can do, John.
Well, he's got personal best in his first sector, nothing outstanding in the second sector. He needs to find what the best part of, again, a tenth or so of a second to see an improvement in position.
No, slower lap that time. He did a 46.3. Did find a bit of traffic. I don't know whether that affected him or not, but he stays 4th at the moment. You've got the Mercedes up top, the Ferrari of Matt Griffin in 2nd. The other Ferrari, by the way, that was on pole for race 1 has gone 3rd quickest in this session. So Federico Leo is almost as quick as his teammate. They are going to be a fantastic pairing.
You know, I'm slightly concerned at the minute, because we're seeing times from GT3 cars that are now within 4 seconds of the time from a GT1 car. And I didn't anticipate the running down or the closing up of the gap between a GT1 and a GT car being quite as dramatic as we're seeing here right now in this second qualifying segment for this will be for Sunday's GT3 event.
Yep, true, but we've yet to see what the GT1s will do in full qualifying trim, I suppose. So,
well, I mean, they ran new tyres yesterday, and they went quicker than they did in qualifying 1 year ago, so they weren't hanging around. So that's indicative that the performance gain relative to the two championships, I would say, has swung more in the favour of GT3.
And this new Ferrari, there's no doubt about it. Well, both new cars. Look, we've got a Mercedes up there and a Ferrari. Let's just see if there's any change here across the line. Now, this is
a slow lap,
the other slower car. But actually, no, that's Leo. This is the car that was on pole for the first race. Federico Leo now taking over from Castellacci. He did a slow lap that time around. He might put in a quicker one now. But you have to say, looking at the performance of the Ferrari 458, that again, they are moving the goalposts once more and making things even harder for the opposition. On board the other car, the other AF Corsa entry, number 51 car of Glyn Geddy now, hasn't really set a representative time yet, though. So
he might be doing it now, so let's have a look and see as we wait for this car to come across start-finish line.
22nd. 22nd.
Yeah, that's not.
I would have expected more.
Again, the bodywork, you can just sense that whether it's picking up reflections from the side of the track, it looks like it's panting as the car comes down the quickest part of the straight. 271 kilometers per hour is what we saw yesterday for the GT3 cars, 279 for a GT1 car.
So let's go on board the Ferrari now then, John. You were talking about the different engine notes. Let's listen to the V8 mid-engined note of this Ferrari.
The big difference between the two engines is the crankshaft configuration. The Ferrari's got a 180-degree crank, and the Mercedes has got a 90-degree crank, and it affects the firing order of the engine, and it therefore has a bearing on the exhaust systems. And high-revving V8s have to have a 180-degree crank, otherwise they wouldn't work. Whereas a big, lusty, low-revving Mercedes V8 has a 90-degree crank, and that's why you get that sort of pulse, sort of throbbing noise. Whereas this is like somebody, almost being tortured.
So let's watch him up at the latter part of the lap now. We'll listen for that lift at turn 16. Look how much he's working the wheel. Do the big old steering wheel in this 458. But let's listen to this part now. Ooh, a lot of understeer there. Now it's this next bit. Expect a bit of a lift here. Yeah, big lift again. He's got a car ahead of him. That doesn't help, does it? He's actually slowed down.
He's coming in into the pits, in fact. Yeah. So that lap really was somewhat of a meaningless lap in terms of getting a representative performance from the Ferrari. And I think the Ferrari is a super quick car, but right now it doesn't have traction control. If you go back and watch one of the Porsches, it's not what's behind, it's the BM. Yes,
that's surprising, because we're expecting it, and she's only 14th in this session. That's a surprise. So not as high up actually as her teammate Tava Walter. She was trying to get past another car, and then just lost the back end of the BMW.
Yes, and once it was gone, she was under brakes. The back end of the car was unloaded, and really, she was just a passenger. That's all you can say.
We have 4 cars that have got into the 1 minute 45. That's impressive.
This is the quicker of the 2 sessions. That's clear.
Definitely. Well, it should be, because
the track's also probably improving, because there was damp. We heard from Roger Green at the start that there were damp patches, so I suspect it's further improved. But looking skyward, it's getting dark.
Yeah, we could be in for some rain later today, no doubt about it. We've also got the higher graded drivers in this session as well. The golds that we do have, 9 golds, will be out in this session, not the other one. So up top we've got the Mercedes still, with this session soon to come to its conclusion. Mike Parisi in the Mercedes has set the pace ahead of Matt Griffin in the Ferrari. Another Ferrari of Federico Leo, 3rd. 4th at the moment is the Aston Martin of Maxime Martin. 5th, the Lamborghini of Albert Montana Taxis. And then in 6th place, the number 11 car, that's the Gravity Charouz Racing Mercedes SLS of Thomas Kostka. Christopher Nygaard has brought his car up to 7th. That's one of the Ford GTs. And then we've got another good lap going on here for the number 21 Ferrari. So Matt Griffin, John, could be on a bit of a last-minute charge here.
Well, he will certainly want to snatch that pole position away from Mike Parisi in the Mercedes-Benz SLS. A little spot of rain just occurring on the turn 14, turn 15 section of the racetrack, and he's backed off and he's into the pits.
Yeah, maybe because of the rain. He had personal bests in the first 2 sectors, which should have been enough to put him very close to the Mercedes, because he was only 2/10 down on it. But for whatever reason, it looks like it could well be that it's got raining out there on circuit, and he has backed it off. Yeah, I can see the odd...
Ferrari in trouble.
Oops.
Damage to the right front and smoke coming off. Oh, there, big damage. Big time damage.
Federico Leo. That is the car that is on pole for the first race today, John.
Oh, well, what has he hit? I really can't tell, but suspension damage, clearly bodywork damage, the part of the guard. I mean, it's, well,
that's very strange.
We'll catch that no doubt on a replay, but we just saw it coming out of the exit of turn 9, and
hard to make out the damage. I mean, you can't.
He's hit something,
yeah.
But what is it he's hit? Or has the suspension failed, or something has taken place which is not normal? I mean, that looks to me more like it's a mechanical problem that has then affected how the
because you can't actually see any damage on the front.
There's no damage to the nose at all. And whether it's a suspension, I can't imagine a suspension failure on a car of this quality, but something strange has taken place. the bodywork is the consequence of what's happened to the front suspension.
Yeah, that does look very odd. So, well, and that's pretty dramatic because this car should be starting on pole for the later race, for the race today rather, with Francesco Castellacci.
The tyre still is inflated, so
yeah.
It's not that it's got a puncture. It's, I mean,
no,
well,
that's an interesting one, definitely.
Pressure for Ferrari team members.
Yeah, yeah.
Go on, give it a good kick, mate. That's it. Go on, give it another kick and see what happens. Let's open to turn 7. Oh, that's what he did. He just mullered the curb.
And
in doing broke. So, he's damaged the suspension.
And the suspension broke. They've punched the wheel up through the wing.
Absolutely. I mean, that is not what you'd expect to happen.
No, that's
I mean,
right.
mind you, it was an aggressive lunge at the curb, but, you know, you'd expect the car to ride it or deflect off it. Watch again as he comes into turn, this is into turn 8.
Oof.
Bosh! He gets the end of the curve, I think, is the problem. He catches it just where the, you know,
There is a raised bit on the inner part of that curb, I think, to stop them corner cutting, and I think, yeah, you could see it on the inner edge of that curb. It is a big old lump of concrete, and he's hit it hard.
And of course, being a left-hand drive car, as opposed to, we normally associate race cars being right-hand drive, but Ferraris and others traditionally are left-hand drive. An error, which of course put the team under pressure when it didn't need that additional work. I mean, the suspension is broken. Whether it's the damper has been knocked, literally, I suspect it's the damper more than the actual suspension itself. Anyway,
there we are.
An exciting session.
Yeah, we've got a Mercedes on pole for the second race of the weekend, but those Ferraris are looking mighty strong in second and third. Damage to one of them, though. Aston Martin up there as well, so is Lamborghini. It's again a real mix of cars, BMWs, Audi R8s up in the top 10. Another Aston Martin, and then the Pro Speed Porsche, Max Soule, who was in the car for that session just outside the top 10. Again, the mix as we go further on down the list. The United Autosports Audis not qualifying as well as I thought they might, so maybe the Dunlop tyre not working quite as well as they might have expected in these conditions. Matt Bell there down in 20th, which is quite a long way down. Didier Andre, he's good to see him in GT3 this year. He's there